For 13 days after death, the Vedas say the soul does not simply disappear. It passes through a mysterious transition, slowly separating from the world it knew, facing the weight of its attachments, and moving toward the next stage of its eternal journey. But what does the soul experience during these 13 days? Does it remain near its loved ones? Can it hear their prayers? When does it understand that the body is gone? And what finally pulls it away from the earthly world? This audiobook will guide you through the hidden journey of the soul, from the final breath to the 13th day, when one chapter closes and another begins. Listen carefully, because the way we live today may determine how peacefully the soul travels when these 13 sacred days finally arrive. Chapter 1. The Final Breath. When the soul begins to separate. The final breath is not merely the moment when the body stops moving. According to Vedic wisdom, it is the beginning of a profound transition in which the soul slowly withdraws from the physical form it has inhabited for an entire lifetime. The eyes may close, the heartbeat may fade, and the senses may become silent, yet the consciousness that witnessed every joy, every wound, every relationship, and every hidden thought does not vanish with the body. The Vedas describe the soul as eternal, untouched by birth and untouched by death, while the body is understood as a temporary garment that must eventually be laid aside when its purpose has been completed. Throughout life, most people become so deeply identified with the body that they forget the silent witness within it. They say, "I am young, I am old, I am strong, I am weak, I am beautiful, or I am broken," without realizing that all these conditions belong to the body and mind, not to the eternal self. The body changes from childhood to old age, the mind changes from one emotion to another, and even the personality transforms through experience, yet something within remains present through every stage. That unchanging presence is what Vedic teachings call the Atman, the eternal consciousness that does not disappear when the final breath leaves the lungs. At the moment of death, the separation may not always feel sudden to the soul. The physical body may become still in an instant, but the deeper connection between consciousness and the world it knew can take time to loosen. The soul has spent years responding to a familiar name, recognizing familiar faces, protecting familiar possessions, and carrying hopes for a future it expected to live. When the body can no longer continue, the soul may still remain surrounded by the impressions of that life, much like a traveler who has left a house but still hears the echoes of every voice that once filled its rooms. This is why the final state of the mind is given such importance in Vedic tradition. The thoughts, emotions, desires, and attachments that dominate consciousness near death may shape the direction of the soul's transition. A mind filled with fear, anger, unfinished longing, or desperate attachment may struggle to accept that the earthly chapter has closed, while a consciousness trained in devotion, truth, compassion, and detachment may move with greater peace. The final breath does not suddenly create the condition of the soul. It reveals the condition that has been cultivated through years of living. If a person has spent life believing that possessions are the source of security, death becomes the moment when every possession must be abandoned. If identity was built entirely upon status, beauty, influence, or praise, the soul is forced to face the disappearance of everything that once supported that identity. But if a person has learnt to see the body as temporary, to perform duty without becoming imprisoned by results, and to remember the divine even during difficulty, the final separation may carry less confusion because the soul has already practiced letting go while still alive. The Vedas often compare death to changing worn-out clothing. Just as a person removes a garment that can no longer be used, the soul leaves a body that has completed its journey. Yet this image should not make us think the life that ended was unimportant. Every body gives the soul a sacred opportunity to experience, to learn, to serve, to love, and to transform. The body is temporary, but the consciousness shaped through its actions leaves a lasting impression, What is left behind is not only flesh and bone. What continues is the inner result of every choice made through that body. At the final breath, the senses begin to withdraw from the external world. Sounds may become distant, faces may fade, and the physical surroundings may lose their power to hold attention. But Vedic teachings suggest that hearing and awareness may remain subtle even when the person can no longer respond outwardly. This is why sacred remembrance, prayer, peaceful chanting, and words of reassurance have traditionally been offered near the dying. The purpose is not to create panic or cling desperately to the departing person, but to surround the transition with calmness, devotion, and the reminder that the soul is not being destroyed. The emotional atmosphere around death may also influence the departing consciousness. Intense crying, desperate calling, conflict, or refusal to accept the departure can strengthen attachment, especially when the soul already feels deeply connected to the people nearby. Grief is natural, and love cannot be silenced by philosophy, yet Vedic wisdom encourages loved ones to combine sorrow with prayer, allowing the soul to continue rather than pulling it backward through emotional desperation. The most compassionate farewell is not, "Do not leave me," but "Go in peace, may your path be guided by light." During this first stage, the soul may begin to understand that the body is no longer responding. It may witness people gathering, hear familiar voices, or sense the sorrow of those left behind, while still feeling connected to the identity of the person who has died. This can create a strange state between recognition and detachment. The soul knows something has changed, but the habits of an entire lifetime do not disappear immediately. A person who spent decades answering to one name may still turn toward that name in subtle consciousness, even though the body associated with it can no longer rise. This is where spiritual preparation becomes profoundly important. A person who regularly reflected upon impermanence may recognize the transition more quickly, while someone who refused to think about death may experience greater confusion. The purpose of contemplating death is not to become gloomy or hopeless. It is to remove the illusion that time is endless. When a person remembers that every relationship, possession, success, and difficulty is temporary, life becomes more meaningful rather than less. Forgiveness becomes urgent, love becomes sincere, and trivial arguments lose their power. The final breath also reveals the true meaning of attachment. We often mistake attachment for love, but they are not the same. Love wishes for the well-being of another soul, while attachment demands that the person remain available to satisfy our emotional needs. Love can bless a departing soul, even while the heart is breaking. Attachment clings and says, "You cannot go because I am not ready." At death, this difference becomes painfully clear. The soul must leave behind even the people it loved most, yet genuine love is not destroyed, because the deepest connection between souls is not limited to one body or one lifetime. The first moment of separation also begins to uncover the truth that nothing external was ever fully owned. The body was borrowed from nature, wealth was gathered temporarily, relationships were sacred meetings between travelers. Even the name carried for decades belonged only to one chapter of a much larger journey. Death does not steal these things. It reveals that they were always temporary. The soul's suffering comes not from their temporary nature, but from having treated them as permanent. Yet this chapter should not create fear, because the Vedic view of death is ultimately a view of continuity. The final breath is not the destruction of consciousness, but the opening of another stage. Just as sunset does not destroy the sun, death does not destroy the soul. It only removes it from the field visible to ordinary human senses. The person appears to be gone because the body can no longer be seen living, but the deeper traveler has entered a passage that the living cannot easily observe. The question is not whether the soul will eventually leave the body, because that moment comes for every human being. The deeper question is whether the soul will leave carrying peace or resistance, gratitude or regret, lightness or the weight of unfinished attachment. Every day of life quietly prepares the answer. Every act of compassion softens the transition. Every truth accepted weakens fear. Every attachment released makes the soul lighter. Every remembrance of the eternal self prepares consciousness for the moment when the body can no longer hold it. The final breath, therefore, becomes the first great lesson of the soul's 13-day journey. You were never only the body that others could see. The body was your instrument, your temporary home, and your opportunity to act within the world. But the awareness within you was always greater than the form carrying it. When the final breath comes, the outer life closes, yet the inner journey continues, and the soul begins its first difficult but sacred task, understanding that the world it knew must now be released. Chapter 2. The First Day. Why the soul may remain near the body. According to Vedic tradition, the first day after death is a deeply sensitive stage because the soul may still feel closely connected to the body, the home, and the people it has just left behind. The physical life has ended, yet the impressions of that life remain strong. The soul has spent years seeing through the eyes, hearing through the ears, responding to a name, and moving through familiar surroundings, so the sudden loss of the body can create a period of confusion and attachment. The soul may not immediately understand the full meaning of death. It may sense familiar voices, prayers, grief, and movement around the body, while no longer being able to respond in the way it once did. This is why Vedic customs often encourage calmness, prayer, and sacred remembrance near the departed. The purpose is to help the soul move toward acceptance, rather than strengthen its desire to remain connected to the physical form. During the first day, the body may still appear important to the soul because it carried every earthly experience. It was through this body that the person loved, suffered, worked, worshipped, and formed relationships. Even though the body has become still, the emotional bond with it may not disappear instantly. The soul may remain near it, much like someone who has left a beloved home but continues looking back at the doorway. This stage also reveals the power of attachment. A person who was deeply obsessed with possessions, status, family control, or unfinished desires may feel a stronger pull toward the earthly world. The soul may remain focused on what it believes has been lost, unable to recognize that the journey must continue. But a person who practiced detachment, devotion, forgiveness, and acceptance during life may experience the first day with greater calm, because the mind was already trained to release what could not remain forever. The prayers of loved ones carry special emotional meaning during this time. They do not control the destiny of the soul, but they create an atmosphere of peace, remembrance, and surrender. Words spoken with love can become a gentle farewell. Your body has completed its work, your earthly duties are over, and you may now move forward without fear. Such prayers are very different from desperate cries that ask the soul not to leave. Grief is natural, but the Vedic path teaches that love should not become a chain. The departed soul needs blessing more than emotional pressure. To say, "May you travel in peace," is one of the most compassionate gifts the living can offer. It acknowledges the pain of separation while also respecting the soul's next journey. The first day after death, therefore, becomes a day of recognition. The soul begins to understand that the body can no longer be entered in the same way, the voice can no longer speak, and the familiar world must slowly be released. This realization may be painful, but it is necessary. The soul cannot move toward the next stage while continuing to believe that the old life can be resumed. For the living, this first day carries an important lesson as well. Everything we cling to so tightly will one day have to be left behind. The body, the home, the possessions, and even the relationships that define us are temporary companions. This does not make them meaningless, it makes them sacred, because we are meant to love and care for them without forgetting that they were never permanent. The first day is not the end of the soul's journey, it is the beginning of its acceptance. As the physical world slowly grows more distant, the soul starts to understand that the body was a temporary home and the path beyond death has already begun. Chapter 3, Days 2 and 3, the soul watches the world it left behind. As the second and third days unfold, the Vedas describe a subtle but deeply emotional stage in the soul's journey. The first shock of leaving the body has begun to settle, yet the soul has not fully detached from the earthly world. It remains connected through memory, affection, and the countless impressions gathered during a lifetime. The body has been left behind, but the heart still remembers every face it loved, every place it called home, and every dream it believed it would one day fulfill. During these sacred days, the soul begins to observe life continuing without it. The house that once echoed with its footsteps remains standing. The family continues to gather. Friends speak its name. Tears are shed. Prayers are offered. The world does not stop, yet for the soul, everything has changed forever. This realization can be one of the most profound experiences of the entire transition. The Vedas teach that attachment does not disappear simply because the body has died. Whatever occupied the heart most strongly during life may still draw the attention of the departing consciousness. A parent may feel concern for children left behind. Someone deeply attached to wealth may continue thinking about possessions that can no longer be touched. A person whose life revolved around status or unfinished ambitions may struggle to accept that the opportunities of that lifetime have ended. This is why the sages repeatedly reminded seekers to practice detachment while living. Detachment does not mean refusing to love the world. It means loving without becoming imprisoned by what must one day be left behind. The soul that learned this lesson before death often experiences these days with greater peace, while the soul that believed everything on earth belonged to it may find the separation much more difficult. As the second and third days continue, another understanding slowly begins to awaken. The soul realizes that no matter how strongly it wishes to speak, embrace a loved one, or change an unfinished situation, the physical body can no longer serve as its instrument. The chapter of action has closed. What remains now is acceptance. The prayers, sacred rituals, and loving remembrance offered by family carry special significance during this stage. They are not meant to hold the soul close to the earth, but to gently encourage it forward. Every sincere prayer becomes a blessing that says, "May your journey continue in peace. May fear leave you. May the divine guide your path." Such prayers help create an atmosphere of surrender rather than attachment. The soul also begins to see life from a wider perspective. Many arguments that once seemed important now appear insignificant. The desire to prove oneself, accumulate more possessions, or seek constant approval begins to lose its meaning. From this higher awareness, the soul recognizes how much of earthly life was spent chasing things that could never be carried beyond death. At the same time, the deepest acts of love shine with extraordinary clarity. Moments of compassion, forgiveness, honesty, sacrifice, and devotion become brighter than achievements, titles, or wealth. The soul understands that these quiet acts shaped its consciousness far more than worldly success ever could. By the end of the third day, a gentle transformation has begun. The earthly world is still visible to the soul, but its grip is slowly weakening. The soul starts to understand that the journey cannot move backward. The life it lived has become a completed chapter, and another path now waits ahead. The second and third days therefore teach one of the greatest truths preserved in the Vedas. Everything you own will remain behind, every title will fade, and every possession will pass into other hands. But the love you gave, the truth you lived, the karma you created, and the consciousness you cultivated will continue traveling with you long after the world has spoken your final farewell. Chapter 4. Days 4 to 6. When attachments begin pulling at the soul, by the fourth day, the soul has begun to accept that the body it once called its own can no longer be used. Yet acceptance does not mean complete freedom. According to the Vedas, these days become a profound test because the strongest attachments of earthly life begin to reveal themselves with remarkable clarity. The soul is no longer held by the physical body, but it may still be held by the desires, emotions, and unfinished longings it carried within the mind. Throughout life, every attachment quietly shapes consciousness. Some people become attached to wealth, believing security comes only from possessions. Others become attached to power, reputation, or the admiration of society. Many become attached to relationships, not through pure love, but through the fear of losing those they depend upon. These invisible bonds often remain hidden while life is busy, but during these sacred days, they become impossible for the soul to ignore. The Vedas teach that attachment is very different from love. Love allows another soul to grow, while attachment tries to possess it. Love brings peace, while attachment creates fear. Love can accept change, but attachment resists every ending. During the 4th, 5th, and 6th days, the soul begins to understand this difference more deeply than ever before. As the earthly world slowly grows distant, the soul may feel itself drawn toward the places it loved most. It remembers the home where it laughed, the room where it prayed, the people it protected, and the dreams it hoped to complete. These memories are not punishments. They are reflections of where the heart invested its deepest energy during life. Every attachment gently asks the soul the same question. Can you release what was always temporary? For some souls, this becomes a peaceful process. Those who spent their lives practicing gratitude, simplicity, selfless service, and devotion often find that the heart is already prepared to let go. They loved their family deeply, fulfilled their responsibilities sincerely, and appreciated the gifts of life. Yet they never forgot that everything in the material world was borrowed for a short time. Their attachments become lighter because they learned the art of surrender while they were still alive. But for others, the struggle may be greater. A person who lived only for possessions may continue thinking about treasures that now belong to someone else. One who carried unresolved anger may remain focused on old conflicts that can no longer be changed. Another, who constantly sought approval, may realize that praise and recognition have vanished with the passing of the body. The soul begins to understand that everything it refused to release during life has now become the weight slowing its journey forward. This is why the Vedic sages constantly reminded their students that true freedom is not achieved in a single moment after death. It is prepared through countless moments before death. Every act of forgiveness weakens attachment. Every desire surrendered lightens the heart. Every act of charity loosens the grip of greed. Every prayer offered with sincerity reminds the soul that its real home has never been limited to the physical world. During these days, the prayers of loved ones continue to hold quiet significance. The Vedas encourage remembrance filled with peace rather than despair. Sacred chanting, acts of charity performed in memory of the departed, and sincere prayers become expressions of love that support the soul without binding it. They remind the departing consciousness that its journey must continue, and that those left behind will honor its memory by living with wisdom rather than endless sorrow. The soul also begins to see how quickly the world moves forward. Daily life continues, the sun still rises, seasons continue to change, conversations begin and end, new children are born even as others leave the earth. This realization is not meant to create sadness but humility. It reminds the soul that the universe never depended upon one individual life. Every person plays a sacred role for a time, fulfills a purpose, and then makes space for others to continue the great unfolding of creation. By the 6th day, a quiet transformation has begun. The strongest attachments are still present, but the soul slowly realizes that holding on to them cannot bring back the life that has ended. The only path remaining is forward. The memories of earth become gentler, and the awareness of a greater journey begins to grow stronger. The 4th, fifth, and sixth days therefore teach one of the deepest lessons in all of Vedic wisdom. Nothing that truly belongs to the soul can ever be taken away, and nothing that belongs only to the material world can ever be kept forever. The body must be left behind, wealth must be left behind. Titles, achievements, and possessions must all remain where they were found. But every act of compassion, every moment of truth, every prayer offered with a pure heart, and every step taken toward the divine continues with the soul long after the world has faded from sight. These sacred days are not about losing everything. They are about discovering what was eternal all along. Chapter 5. Days 7 to 9. The soul encounters its karmic impressions. As the seventh day begins, the soul gradually moves beyond the powerful pull of the physical world and enters a far deeper stage of its journey. The familiar sights of earthly life begin to fade, and another reality slowly unfolds before its awareness. According to the Vedas, these are the days when the soul begins to encounter the full weight of its own karma, not as punishment from an outside force, but as the natural reflection of the life it created through its thoughts, intentions, words, and actions. Throughout earthly life, every choice leaves an impression upon consciousness. Every act of kindness plants a seed of light. Every selfish action leaves behind a shadow that must eventually be understood. Nothing is forgotten by the universe, because karma is not a system of reward and punishment created by anger or judgment. It is the perfect law of balance that patiently guides every soul toward wisdom. During these sacred days, the soul begins to witness this law with extraordinary clarity. The Vedas teach that the soul does not stand before a judge who condemns or praises it. Instead, it stands before the truth of its own consciousness. Every moment of compassion, every broken promise, every sacrifice made for another, every act of forgiveness, every selfish desire, every hidden intention, and every sincere prayer become visible with remarkable precision. The soul no longer sees life through excuses or personal opinions. It sees everything exactly as it truly was. This experience is unlike anything known during earthly existence. While living, the mind often protects itself by blaming circumstances, defending mistakes, or believing that no one noticed what happened in secret. But during these days, nothing remains hidden. The soul understands not only what it did, but also how those actions touched the lives of others. It feels the joy it created, the pain it caused, the hope it inspired, and the wounds it left behind. This understanding is not meant to create fear. It is meant to awaken complete honesty. Many souls discover that the smallest acts carried the greatest spiritual value. A quiet word of encouragement, a moment of genuine forgiveness, a prayer offered without seeking recognition, or a simple act of kindness performed when no one was watching often shines brighter than achievements that once attracted applause from the world. At the same time, actions driven by pride, greed, jealousy, or cruelty reveal consequences that reached far beyond what the person ever imagined during life. The soul also begins to understand why certain experiences happened on earth. Events that once seemed unfair may now reveal hidden purpose. Difficult relationships may be recognized as opportunities to repay old karmic debts or to develop patience, compassion, and humility. Painful losses may be seen as lessons that slowly weakened attachment and prepared the soul for spiritual growth. The Vedas explain that nothing meaningful happens without reason. Every encounter, every challenge, and every blessing becomes part of the soul's long education across many lifetimes. During these days, another realization begins to emerge. The soul understands that karma is never permanent. It exists to teach, not to imprison. Every sincere effort toward truth, every victory over anger, every act of selfless service, and every step taken according to Dharma has already transformed the future in ways that were impossible to see while living. The universe remembers every sincere attempt to become wiser, even when the world failed to notice. The seventh, eighth, and ninth days therefore become a time of profound awakening. The soul sees that its greatest treasure was never the wealth it collected or the position it achieved. Its greatest treasure was the consciousness it built through every ordinary decision. The habits of the heart became more valuable than the possessions of the hands. Character became more enduring than reputation. Inner transformation became more important than outward success. By the end of the ninth day, the soul carries a much clearer understanding of its own journey. Many illusions have fallen away, and the lessons hidden within earthly life have become impossible to ignore. The path ahead is beginning to reveal itself, not because destiny has been forced upon the soul, but because the soul is now seeing the truth of its own spiritual condition. These sacred days leave behind one unforgettable lesson. Every thought matters, every intention matters, every word matters, every action matters. The life we live today quietly becomes the path our soul will walk tomorrow. Karma is not waiting for the end of life to begin its work. It is being written in every moment we choose between truth and falsehood, compassion and selfishness, wisdom and ignorance. And when the soul finally stands before its own reflection, it discovers that the greatest judge it will ever meet is the truth it created through the way it lived. Chapter 6. Days 10 to 12. Preparing to leave the earthly realm. As the 10th day arrives, the soul enters one of the most significant stages of its journey beyond death. According to the Vedas, much of the confusion connected to earthly life has now begun to fade. The familiar home, the physical body, and the routines that once defined everyday existence no longer hold the same power. Instead, the soul gradually awakens to a greater reality. It begins to understand that its time in the earthly world has truly ended, and another chapter of its eternal journey is about to begin. The first 9 days were filled with recognition, reflection, attachment, and the unfolding of karma. But the 10th, 11th, and 12th days carry a different purpose. These are the days of preparation. The soul slowly releases the final impressions of the life it has completed and begins moving toward the destination shaped by its own consciousness. The Vedas describe this transition not as a sudden leap, but as a gentle unfolding, where every attachment loosened and every truth accepted allows the soul to become lighter. One of the deepest realizations during these days is that nothing from the material world can accompany the soul any farther. The home that once felt permanent now belongs to others. The wealth collected over decades remains behind. Titles, achievements, and social status disappear with remarkable speed. Even the body that served faithfully throughout life has returned to the elements of nature from which it was formed. At first, this realization may seem painful, but gradually the soul begins to understand its hidden wisdom. Nothing real has been lost. Only what was temporary has been left behind. The Vedas teach that the greatest illusion of earthly life is believing that we own what was only entrusted to us for a short time. Every relationship was a sacred meeting between souls. Every possession was a temporary responsibility. Every success was an opportunity to practice humility. Every hardship was an invitation to grow. During these days, the soul sees that life was never about collecting more. It was always about becoming more awakened. As earthly memories slowly become quieter, another kind of awareness grows stronger. The soul begins to sense the subtle direction of its next journey. There is no panic, no rushing, and no confusion created by time itself, because time is no longer experienced as it was on earth. Instead, there is a growing recognition that every stage has unfolded according to an order far greater than human understanding. The Vedas often describe the universe as being governed by perfect intelligence. Nothing in the soul's journey is random. The circumstances of birth, the lessons of life, the experiences after death, and the destination beyond are all connected through the laws of karma and dharma. During these sacred days, the soul begins to trust that intelligence instead of resisting it. Many questions that seemed impossible during earthly life now begin to answer themselves. Why did certain people enter my life? Why did some dreams never come true? Why did suffering appear when I least expected it? Why was one path opened while another was closed? From the soul's higher perspective, these events no longer appear as isolated moments of fortune or misfortune. They become chapters in a single story whose purpose was always spiritual awakening. The soul also begins to understand that every person it encountered was carrying their own karma, their own lessons, and their own journey. Those who showed kindness became teachers of love. Those who caused pain became teachers of detachment, forgiveness, and inner strength. Even life's greatest disappointments often protected the soul from paths that would have delayed its spiritual growth. Nothing appears meaningless anymore. The Vedas explain that by the 10th day, the soul has become far less interested in what the world thought about it. Praise and criticism, success and failure, popularity and rejection, all the measurements that once seemed so important begin to dissolve into silence. The soul discovers that the universe never measured a human being by wealth, appearance, influence, or fame. It measured consciousness. How truthful was your heart? How pure were your intentions? How much compassion did you offer when no one was watching? How often did you choose Dharma over selfish desire? These questions become infinitely more important than every worldly achievement. As the 11th day approaches, the soul grows lighter with every attachment it releases. The fear of losing begins to disappear because there is nothing left to protect. The anxiety that once surrounded the future fades because the soul realizes that existence itself has never been threatened. Only the body has changed. This realization creates an extraordinary peace. The soul no longer struggles against the inevitable. It begins to flow with it. The Vedas compare this stage to a river nearing the ocean. For thousands of miles, the river has carved its own path, passing through mountains, forests, villages, and valleys. It has carried leaves, stones, flowers, and countless reflections upon its surface. Yet, as it approaches the ocean, it does not cling to the shape it once had. It simply continues flowing toward its greater destination. The soul follows this same eternal law. Every lifetime has been another stretch of the river. Every lesson another bend in its course. Every act of wisdom has carried it closer to the infinite. During these days, the prayers of loved ones continue to carry quiet spiritual significance. The Vedic tradition teaches that sincere remembrance, sacred recitation, acts of charity, and peaceful intention offered in honor of the departed create an atmosphere of blessing rather than attachment. Such acts do not force the soul in any direction, but they express love in its highest form, a love that supports freedom instead of possession. The soul also begins to experience a growing sense of gratitude. It becomes thankful for the body that allowed it to learn, thankful for the family that shaped its character, thankful for the challenges that awakened strength, thankful for the losses that taught impermanence, thankful for the moments of joy that revealed the beauty of existence. Even painful experiences begin to reveal hidden gifts. The soul understands that without suffering, compassion may never have awakened. Without failure, humility may never have grown. Without loss, detachment may never have been learned. Without uncertainty, faith may never have become real. This is one of the greatest transformations described by the Vedas. The soul no longer divides life into good events and bad events. It sees everything as part of a single sacred education. As the 12th day draws to a close, the soul stands at the edge of another profound transition. The earth no longer feels like its destination. The pull of the material world has become weaker. The weight of unfinished attachment has begun to dissolve. The journey ahead no longer inspires fear, but quiet readiness. The soul understands that what awaits is not an ending. It is a continuation. Another doorway is about to open. The 10th, 11th, and 12th days therefore prepare the soul for its greatest act of surrender. They teach that freedom does not come from holding more tightly to life. Freedom comes from releasing everything that was never truly ours, while carrying forward only what can never be lost. Compassion, truth, wisdom, devotion, the consciousness shaped through a lifetime of choices. These alone travel beyond the boundary of death, and as the 12th day comes to its peaceful conclusion, the soul waits before one final earthly threshold, ready to enter the 13th day, the sacred moment when its journey through the visible world comes to an end and the next chapter of its eternal destiny begins. Chapter 7, the 13th day. When the soul crosses into its next journey, the 13th day stands at the edge of two worlds. Behind the soul lies the life it has completed, the body it once inhabited, the relationships it loved, the duties it performed, the mistakes it made, and the attachments it struggled to release. Ahead lies a path no physical eye can follow, shaped by karma, consciousness, desire, spiritual understanding, and the deeper direction of the soul's unfinished journey. According to Vedic tradition, this day represents a decisive transition. The soul is no longer merely observing the world it left behind, and it is no longer held as strongly by the body, home, possessions, or familiar identity. The long process of separation has brought it to a threshold where the earthly chapter must finally be accepted as complete. The soul now begins moving more fully toward the next stage of existence, carrying only what death could not remove. This is the first great truth of the 13th day. The soul does not carry wealth, status, appearance, titles, or possessions. It carries impressions. It carries the habits formed through repeated choices, the intentions hidden behind actions, the love that purified the heart, the resentment that remained unresolved, the wisdom gained through suffering, and the desires that still seek fulfillment. What a person owned remains on earth, but what a person became continues. Throughout life, human beings often judge themselves and others by what is visible. They measure success through houses, money, influence, beauty, education, reputation, and achievement. Yet at the threshold beyond death, these measurements lose all authority. The soul is not asked how impressive its life appeared. It is revealed through the quality of consciousness cultivated within that life. Did power make the person more responsible or more arrogant? Did suffering deepen compassion or strengthen bitterness? Did knowledge become wisdom, or did it only feed pride? Did love become service, or did it become control? Did the person learn to release what could not remain, or did attachment become the center of every choice? These questions are not asked through words. They exist within the condition of the soul itself. Consciousness carries its own answer. The 13th day is therefore not a sudden judgment placed upon the soul from outside. It is the moment when the direction already created through life becomes increasingly clear. Just as a river flows according to the path it has formed, the soul moves according to the tendencies it has strengthened. A consciousness filled with compassion, truth, devotion, and detachment is naturally drawn differently from one dominated by cruelty, greed, obsession, fear, or unresolved desire. The Vedas describe karma not as anger from the divine, but as the precise continuity of cause and consequence. Every action influences the one performing it. Repeated kindness makes compassion more natural. Repeated dishonesty makes deception easier. Repeated anger turns reaction into habit. Repeated devotion makes remembrance available even during difficulty. Life is constantly shaping the consciousness that will eventually cross beyond it. By the 13th day, the soul begins to understand that the future was never created only at the moment of death. It was being prepared every day. The careless words spoken in anger became part of that preparation. The apology offered with sincerity became part of it. The temptation resisted, the stranger helped, the promise kept, the forgiveness delayed. the truth avoided, and the duty performed without recognition all contributed to the inner direction of the soul. Nothing meaningful was truly lost. Nothing harmful was erased merely because no one else discovered it. The universe did not need an external record because every action had already left its mark within consciousness. This stage also carries a powerful lesson about identity. During life, a person may become completely attached to one name, one family role, one profession, one social position, and one personal story. The mind says, "This is who I am." But death slowly removes each of these definitions until the soul stands beyond the identity it defended for years. The person who was called a parent can no longer perform that earthly role. The person known as a leader no longer holds authority. The one praised for beauty has left the body through which that beauty appeared. The one who collected wealth has no hands with which to hold it. The one who depended upon public admiration can no longer hear the crowd. What remains beneath these roles? This is the spiritual question hidden within the 13th day. The Vedas point toward the Atman, the inner consciousness that existed before the present identity and continues after it. The roles were real within their proper time, but they were never the complete self. They were responsibilities and experiences offered to the soul, not permanent definitions of its eternal nature. The 13th day marks a deeper release of the identity connected to the former life. The soul may retain impressions, tendencies, and karmic momentum, but the earthly personality begins losing the central place it once held. The former name becomes part of a completed chapter rather than the whole story. For the living, this is why the 13th day may be approached not only with sorrow, but with surrender. Grief remains natural because love experiences the absence of the physical person, yet Vedic remembrance encourages the family to recognize that the departed soul must continue its own journey. To hold it emotionally through desperation is different from honoring it through prayer, gratitude, charity, and peaceful remembrance. The deepest farewell says, "You mattered deeply to us, but we will not make our pain a chain around your path." This kind of love is difficult because the heart wants to hold what it treasures. Yet true love must eventually accept that no soul belongs permanently to another. Families meet for a time. They share karma, affection, responsibility, conflict, healing, and growth. Then the paths separate according to a wisdom larger than personal desire. The 13th day reveals that separation does not make the relationship meaningless. On the contrary, impermanence makes every moment of sincere love more precious. The person is no longer physically present, but what they awakened in others can remain. Their kindness may continue through the people they helped. Their wisdom may shape future decisions. Their mistakes may become lessons that prevent repeated harm. Their presence may become part of the emotional and spiritual inheritance of an entire family. A human life continues through influence even after the body has ended. The prayers and acts of remembrance offered during this stage can become a way of transforming grief into dharma. Instead of allowing sorrow to collapse entirely into despair, the living may perform kindness in the departed person's memory, support someone in need, feed others, forgive an old conflict, or renew their own spiritual practice. In this way, death becomes not only a wound, but a call to greater awareness. The departed soul's journey and the family's healing are not identical, but they can move in harmony. The soul is released forward, while the living are invited to awaken more deeply to the value of their remaining time. The 13th day also brings the mystery of the soul's next direction. Vedic traditions contain different ways of describing the journey after death, and no human being can claim complete ordinary knowledge of what every soul experiences. Yet the central principle remains consistent. Consciousness does not continue randomly. Karma, desire, realization, and spiritual orientation influence what follows. A soul still deeply attached to unfulfilled experience may be drawn toward another birth. The desire to possess, control, enjoy, complete, avenge, or become may create further movement within samsara, the cycle of birth and death. These desires function like seeds seeking conditions in which they can grow. A soul that has cultivated greater detachment and virtue may move towards subtler realms where the results of righteous action are experienced and consciousness continues its development. Yet even beautiful higher realms are not necessarily final, because any state produced by karma remains part of change. A soul established in profound realization may move closer to freedom from compulsory return. In the highest Vedic vision, liberation comes not merely from good actions, but from the destruction of ignorance, the recognition that the deepest self was never the temporary body, mind, or ego. The 13th day, therefore, opens not one identical road for everyone, but a passage into the consequence of consciousness. This should not create fear. Fear rarely produces wisdom. The purpose of these teachings is to awaken responsibility while life remains available. Death does not exist to frighten the living into obedience. It reminds them that actions have depth, time has limits, and consciousness is being shaped even in ordinary moments. You do not prepare for the soul's journey by becoming obsessed with death. You prepare by learning how to live. You prepare by resolving what can still be resolved. You apologize while the voice can speak. You express love while the person can hear it. You release resentment before it hardens into identity. You fulfill your responsibilities without waiting for perfect conditions. You stop treating people as though there will always be another opportunity. Many people carry conversations they intend to have someday. They plan to forgive later, change later, serve later, begin their true work later, and become spiritually serious when life becomes quieter. Yet death does not always arrive after every unfinished task has been completed. The 13th day reminds us that postponement can become a form of unconscious living. The question is not whether you can complete every worldly ambition before death. No life finishes every possible project. The deeper question is whether you are leaving the essential work untouched. Have you become honest with yourself? Have you examined the pattern that repeatedly harms you and others? Have you used your gifts only for personal recognition, or have they also become service? Have you learned anything from the pain you endured? Have you allowed love to make you more compassionate? Have you accepted that control is limited? Have you remembered that the body is temporary? These are the unfinished tasks that matter most. As the soul crosses the 13th day threshold, regrets connected to unperformed outer plans may lose importance compared with regrets of consciousness. The book never written, the journey never taken, or the wealth never collected may matter less than the kindness never offered, the truth never lived, and the relationship sacrificed to pride. The soul may understand that it spent years winning arguments that produced no peace. It may see how often fear silenced its dharma. It may recognize that many anxieties concerned events that never happened, while the present moment was repeatedly ignored. This recognition is not intended as eternal condemnation. Vedic wisdom presents the soul as a traveler, still capable of growth. Even regret can become instruction. Awareness gained after one life may influence the direction of another. Karma is not merely the continuation of suffering, it also carries the possibility of transformation. The universe does not repeat lessons because it hates the student. It repeats them because the lesson remains incomplete. If attachment was not understood, circumstances may arise again that reveal its cost. If power was misused, another experience may teach humility. If love was confused with possession, future relationships may bring the same emotional pattern until freedom becomes possible. If compassion was developed, it may appear as a natural gift and strength in a future chapter. The soul carries forward both bondage and progress. This is why no sincere effort is wasted. One act of restraint may seem small, yet it weakens an ancient pattern. One moment of forgiveness may interrupt years of hatred. One decision to speak truth may create a new direction. One genuine prayer may awaken a devotion that becomes stronger over time. The 13th day gathers these invisible results and directs the soul toward what comes next. By this stage, the earthly world may appear more distant. The voices of loved ones become softer. The home, body, and former identity no longer define the soul's immediate reality. A different movement begins, guided less by the familiar senses and more by the subtle forces of consciousness. For a soul prepared through spiritual understanding, this may bring peace. The world is released, not because it was hated, but because its chapter has been completed. The soul can feel gratitude without demanding return. It can honor love without clinging to form. It can carry wisdom without carrying every detail of memory. For a soul dominated by attachment, the transition may be more difficult, because what cannot be physically recovered still holds emotional authority. Yet even this difficulty reveals the lesson that life offered repeatedly. Anything temporary becomes a source of suffering when treated as eternal. The 13th day is therefore both departure and revelation. The soul leaves the immediate field of earthly identification, but it also discovers the truth about what truly belonged to it. The body did not belong permanently. The house did not belong permanently. The relationships did not belong as possessions. The status did not belong. Even the personal story could not be held forever, but the consciousness developed through these experiences became part of the soul's continuing journey. The patience learned while caring for someone remained. The courage developed through hardship remained. The compassion born from suffering remained. The tendencies strengthened through repeated choices remained. The longing for truth remained. This is the inheritance death cannot take away. The 13th day also teaches the living how to remember the departed wisely. Memory can become a place of gratitude, or it can become a room in which grief refuses to let time move. Healing does not mean forgetting the person. It means allowing love to change form. You may no longer speak to them as you once did, sit beside them, or receive their physical presence. Yet you can allow their life to deepen your own awareness. You can become kinder because you now understand how fragile time is. You can stop delaying the relationships that remain. You can carry forward what was noble in them and consciously end what was harmful. This is how remembrance becomes sacred rather than imprisoning. A person may ask whether the soul can hear the prayers offered during these days. No ordinary certainty can answer every hidden mystery, but the spiritual intention remains valuable regardless. Prayer changes the atmosphere of the living, turns grief towards surrender, and places the departed within a field of love rather than panic. The words do not need to be complex. A sincere heart may simply say, "May you be free from fear. May you release this world peacefully. May wisdom guide your path. May the divine receive you." Such a farewell does not deny grief. It gives grief a direction. As the soul moves beyond this threshold, the first 13 days become a completed bridge. The final breath began the separation. The first day revealed the soul's closeness to the body. The second and third days showed the world continuing behind it. The 4th through 6th days exposed attachments. The 7th through 9th days revealed karmic impressions. The 10th through 12th days prepared the soul to leave the immediate earthly field. Now the 13th day closes that bridge. The soul crosses forward. What waits beyond may differ according to its state. There may be further reflection, experience in subtler realms, movement toward rebirth, or progress toward liberation. But the central earthly transition is complete. The soul is no longer standing at the door of the life it left. It has turned toward the road created by everything it carried within. This is why the 13th day should not be understood only as a ritual date. It symbolizes a spiritual truth that applies to every human being. A moment arrives when the past can no longer be entered, the body can no longer be recovered, and the soul must move according to what it has become. One day, that soul will be yours. The home left behind will be your home. The unfinished conversations may be yours. The people praying may be those who now depend on your presence. The possessions being divided may be the ones you currently protect. The name spoken in memory may be your name. This is not said to create darkness. It is said to bring you fully into life. Because while breath remains, the journey is still being shaped. You can still become lighter. You can still repair harm. You can still change the habits that would otherwise follow you. You can still turn knowledge into character, affection into compassionate love, and suffering into wisdom. You can live so that your soul does not arrive at the 13th day burdened by a life spent avoiding truth. Live in a way that allows gratitude to be stronger than regret. Love in a way that does not imprison another person. Work in a way that serves more than your ego. Use possessions without allowing possessions to own your mind. Fulfill your duties, but remember, you are more than your roles. Prepare for death not by withdrawing from life, but by entering life consciously. The Vedas do not ask you to spend every day thinking only about the end. They ask you to remember the end often enough that you stop wasting the middle. The 13th day is powerful because it turns death into a teacher of present awareness. It tells you that every hour matters, not because you must fear losing it, but because each hour can shape a consciousness capable of crossing with peace. When your final journey arrives, you will not need the world to declare that your life was meaningful. Meaning will be carried in the condition of your soul. It will be present in the love you gave without control, the truth you chose when deception was easier, and the patterns you ended instead of passing forward. The 13th day does not ask whether you lived without mistakes. No human life does. It asks whether your mistakes awakened responsibility. It does not ask whether you avoided all suffering. It asks what suffering formed within you. It does not ask whether everyone approved of you. It asks whether you remained faithful to truth. This is the final earthly threshold. The soul releases the name it carried. It releases the rooms it knew. It releases the body through which it once touched the world. It blesses what must remain behind and turns toward what cannot be avoided. The next journey begins not with the wealth of the hands, but with the condition of the heart, not with the reputation built before others, but with the consciousness built in silence, not with what the person managed to keep, but with what the soul learned to release. And as the 13th day reaches its sacred close, one chapter of existence becomes complete. The soul does not vanish. It does not fall into meaninglessness. It crosses beyond the immediate world of the living and continues along the path prepared through karma, desire, wisdom, devotion, and awakening. The house grows quiet. The prayers remain. The body has returned to nature. The name becomes memory. But the eternal traveler moves forward. And the final lesson of these 13 days becomes clear. Death may close the life the world could see, but it cannot close the journey of the soul. We have now reached the end of the soul's first 13 days after death. But the deepest purpose of this journey was never to make you afraid of what comes after life. It was to help you understand what must be awakened before life is over. The final breath revealed that you are more than the body. The first day showed how strongly consciousness can remain connected to the form and world it once called its own. The second and third days revealed how difficult it may be to watch life continue without you. The fourth through sixth days exposed the invisible power of attachment. The seventh through ninth days brought the soul before the impressions of its own karma. The 10th through 12th days prepared it to release the earthly realm, and the 13th day opened the passage toward whatever journey its consciousness had already prepared. Yet the most important truth is this: the soul does not begin creating that journey after death. It is creating it now. Every thought you repeatedly entertain is shaping your inner direction. Every word you speak is leaving an impression. Every act of kindness makes the heart lighter. Every unresolved hatred adds weight. Every time you choose truth over convenience, compassion over cruelty, or surrender over control, you prepare the soul for a more peaceful transition. Death does not suddenly transform an unconscious life into an awakened one. It reveals what has been cultivated in silence for years. This is why the Vedas do not ask you to wait for your final days before becoming serious about the soul. They ask you to live each ordinary day with the awareness that nothing external can remain forever. The body will change, possessions will pass into other hands, roles will end, relationships will change form, even your name will one day be spoken only in memory. But what you become through these temporary things does not disappear so easily. The patience you developed remains. The compassion awakened by suffering remains. The discipline created through truthful action remains. The attachments you strengthened may remain as well. Death takes away the stage, but the consciousness shaped upon that stage continues. So do not waste this life preparing only for comfort, while ignoring the condition of your soul. Forgive while forgiveness is still possible. Speak love while the person can still hear you. Apologize before pride turns one painful moment into years of separation. Use your gifts while your body can still serve. Release the bitterness that no longer protects you. Stop postponing the truth you already know. You do not need to become perfect before death. You need to become conscious. You need to recognize when fear is choosing for you, when attachment is disguising itself as love, and when ego is demanding victories that cost you peace. You need to remember that the people around you are also temporary travelers, carrying their own karma, wounds, and unfinished lessons. Treat them carefully. A harsh word may remain in someone's heart long after you have forgotten speaking it. A quiet act of kindness may become the reason another person continues through darkness. You may never fully know the effect of your presence, but the soul carries the quality of that presence beyond the visible moment. If someone you love has already crossed this threshold, honor them not only with grief, but with awakened living. Let their absence teach you the value of those who remain. Let their memory make you more compassionate. Continue the goodness they began, and consciously end the pain they may have unknowingly passed forward. Love does not require you to remain trapped in sorrow forever. Sometimes the most sacred way to remember a departed soul is to live with greater truth, because their death reminded you that time is not promised. And when your own 13 days eventually arrive, may your soul not remain chained to everything it was forced to leave. May it recognize the body as a completed instrument rather than a lost identity. May it release the home with gratitude, the possessions without regret, and loved ones with a blessing rather than desperate attachment. May the truth of your actions bring clarity rather than fear. May the consciousness you cultivated become a light upon the path ahead. You cannot control every mystery beyond death, but you can influence the soul that will meet that mystery. You can make it lighter through forgiveness, clearer through truth, stronger through discipline, softer through compassion, and more peaceful through remembrance of the eternal self. Perhaps the greatest lesson of these 13 days is not about where the soul goes after death. It is about who you are becoming before death arrives. So leave this audiobook with one question quietly resting within you. If your final breath came sooner than expected, what would your soul still be carrying that you have the power to release today? Do not answer with fear. Answer with action. Live so that gratitude becomes stronger than regret. Love so that attachment does not become a prison. Fulfill your dharma while the opportunity remains. And remember that every day is not merely another day of physical life. It is another day of preparation for the eternal journey. The body will one day become still. The house will grow quiet. The world will continue, but the soul will move forward, carrying the truth of how you lived. May that truth be filled with compassion. May that journey be guided by wisdom. And when your 13th day reaches its sacred end, may your soul be ready to release what was temporary and travel peacefully toward what comes next.